Can you airbrush the wrinkles out?
Welcome, folks, to the Squeaky Wheel. As always, with me is my friend and my co-host, the president, Lawrence Gervais. And folks, I'm Ross Memphis Pambrun. I'm the CEO of the Memphis Group. I involve myself in many Métis aspects within our community, and always enjoy bringing new guests onto the Squeaky Wheel. Lawrence, before we jump too far into this, and before we get to tell our folks who we're bringing on today, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm 5'9.5". I always add the half.
I think that went down, didn't it? It's certainly
No, not yet. I think I might be shrinking though too. And you know, I recently got a nice treadmill, so I've been starting to work out on that. Because of COVID, I'm not really going to gyms.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not really into that. And I've been trying to inch myself towards a restaurant. We'll see how that goes in the near future. I find I get to a parking lot and I see the front door and then I kind of go, I don't know. And then I turn away, right? Like a scared little cat. But I'm going to eventually get in there, you know, and that's how my life is. I think by the end of the week, maybe I'll try something.
And I know I try to support our community and and all the local areas around me by ordering, and we'll go down and pick things up. And the systems are getting quite good at where they enable you in order to pick things up. So I'm enjoying that. But yeah, when it starts to get pretty cold out there, I'm going to have to start figuring out what I'm going to do too, because you're right. We're all still trying to figure out how to best approach the gyms, our relationships with the gyms, and they're still trying to figure it out. How do they stay sustainable? I think that's an excellent question. So folks, on the Squeaky Wheel, Lawrence and I usually get into a conversation about coffee, and Lawrence, I'm going to chat about that right away. We'll talk about some current issues and our Métis connections. And our Métis connections today is I'm always excited to welcome a service member, and that member today is the CPS, Calgary Police Service, Indigenous Relationship Coordinator. I think that's the best term for him, Alan Chamberlain. So he'll be coming on shortly. Then we'll talk a little bit about how to connect with us, some of the things to expect on our future broadcasts, and what our local rants and raves are. So last week we talked with Matt Hilterman, who is discussing his relationship with Fort Calgary. And for us, he's a developing role when it comes to the Métis heritage sort of information collection. So he's helping us collect our heritage information so that we can express more conversation. We talked about supporting local, and we did talk about Fort Calgary. So today, though, Lawrence, as I bring to you, and this is a bit of irony, and if I remember, I'll have to bring it up with Alan, but I went to, it's called the Bullet Coffee Shop, and it's on Northland and 14th Street, and I think it's in the northwest. Yes, going up 14th Street. And they make this absolute wonderful dark roast and the people inside are just so delightful. So there's a bit of irony there. I think the last thing anybody in the CPS wants to use is a bullet, but when it does happen, it does happen. But I had picked this coffee up, and it is absolutely spectacular. And a big shout out to those folks for such a wonderful coffee shop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they use bullets. We know that. They're licensed to carry.
Don't worry, I'll make sure
that right.
I'll make sure I get you some. Now, the current issue I wanted to bring up with you today was, and this is a reminder to everybody, and perhaps, Lawrence, you could also talk a little bit about it, is Orange Shirt Day. And what does that mean? And Orange Shirt Day is on September 30th.
Yeah, so, you know, for years, I mean, my grandmother was in day school, so we kind of know a little bit about that in the family. And I have a few cousins that were actually in the boarding school and who have a case currently with, you know, the government. So, you know, residential school, and it's all about healing, and orange shirt because it was, you know, a young girl was wearing that on her first day, and it was tore off of her, and she had to force to wear something else. Mm-hmm. So we always remember that orange shirt being a reminder that once you're put into the system, they took a hold of you in every aspect, right? So we're trying to break that barrier down in that storyline, that narrative, to say now we have control as an Indigenous population.
Yeah.
And really, it's an event for creating that awareness for everybody to be a part of. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of events because of this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is virtual, but we are doing sort of a raising at Elbow River Camp in Stampede grounds. And that should be interesting that day at 1:00, I do believe, on September 30th. So pretty excited.
I think I've been invited as well, and there's a good chance that there might be a big red truck behind me when that happens. So I'm actually quite looking forward to it. And I think that red shirt or orange shirt day has been on, I think it was 2012 that I had looked into it. So
yeah,
we might have to
it was
do
fairly
things
recent.
virtually.
Yeah.
Do it virtually for now, but we're eventually going to be moving into where folks, you're going to be able to get back together with family and friends. This just still is a difficult time. Lawrence, this might be the time on our show because I think I see we have Alan Chamberlain here who's coming in for the waiting room. So let's invite Constable Alan Chamberlain to the show, and let me bring him in. Lawrence, I think it's time. This is our wonderful opportunity that we finally get to invite Constable Alan Chamberlain to the Squeaky Wheel. Alan, welcome to the Squeaky Wheel.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
You, and I know this is going to be important to you too. And Lawrence and I were just talking about it a little earlier, that on September 30th, and it's just one more shout out to the folks, our listeners and everybody who's engaged in the relationship with the Squeaky Wheel and with the president and the captain, that on September 30th, Orange Shirt Day in recognition of residential schools. And we've talked a little bit about it, and I hope that there's a chance you're going to be participating, because I know that even I've been invited to participate in one of the local events that's going on. But before we get too much into that, and if you have anything you want to talk about that, Alan, the listeners, the video listeners, they always get to hear about Lawrence and I. Tell us about yourself and the journey that you've been in that's taken you into the successful role that you're in.
Well, I thank you so much about that. And just, well, my name is, like you said, my name's Alan, and I work as the Indigenous Liaison Officer for the Calgary Police Service. I've been in this role for about 3.5 years now. Total policing career has been 10 years. So I used to work in District 6 just as General Patrol, the mountain bike team down there. But I'm just blessed to be in this position. And so thankful that from all the people who did work before me, this role has been here since 1979. So we're 41 years with the diversity team. Just the way it started out was really, it showcased what the police needed within support from the community. I'll give you a little story on how it started. Back then there was a sit-in from the Indigenous community at a federal building. And so basically they sent the negotiators in to go negotiate it and end it peacefully. And one cop looked at the other cop and said, "What do you know about this community?" The other cop said, "I don't know anything. What do you know?" The other cop said, "I don't know." They all looked around each other. No one knew anything. So thankfully the protest was ended peacefully. But later on, the conversation started saying, how do you police a community you have no idea about, you have no relationships about? So at that time in 1979, back then I think it was called the Race Relations Unit started, and then we had name changes with the Multicultural Unit, and we finally settled into the Diversity Resources Team. So like I said, I'm super blessed for 41 years of backing and of course the community support.
The folks, for the many of you who know that I am a professional fire captain, it's actually kind of cute that there has been a time where both Alan and I have run into each other at a call together. And one of my other favorite things is, because you attend a lot of the events, and Lawrence is usually the person chairing the whole thing that's going on. And I am very impressed at how proudly you wear your sash and how wonderful it looks with your uniform. And I guess that's something I wanted maybe you could expound on, because this is a conversation that happens commonly on the Squeaky Wheel as we've brought in a lot of our guests. And I'm polite and respectful on how I ask the question, but I think I can ask this fairly of you because, again, you wear that sash very proudly. Where did that journey begin? For a lot of us, it came later in our lives. And it seems like the elderly population, the seniors, the elders, have all said when they were younger, they were told to keep quiet. But now the youth And these conversations and the squeaky wheel, and Lawrence does a great job with all of our youth workers and youth working programs to say, it's okay now. And now's the time to be proud. Where did that journey start for you?
So that journey started with my family. I'm sure, like anybody else, within the house, you talked about it. You cooked the bannock. You did the jig. There was a fiddle always. Outside of the house, you didn't talk about it. No. Back then, it was when you left the house, you were French. That's it.
Okay.
So it wasn't until later on when, and I'm so thankful for the youth to come out and express themselves. And I am just so proud when able to carry that's part of the decolonization work we're doing here at CPS with the Métis and with the First Nations. That's just one small step to a bigger picture that we're hoping to achieve with the calls to action from the Truth and Reconciliation. It's something. It's funny because it's something small but something so big, and I love it.
I just want to make a comment. Community policing and sort of Indigenous policing. My brother's a sergeant in the RCMP, and he was in an Aboriginal division, but he never went to sort of that community policing area. He kind of went to a different. What sort of attracted you to get involved in the Indigenous side and the policing area? Because I've seen you. You're always on Facebook. You're always on social media. You're walking, from here to the Blood Reserve, or you're connecting with the chiefs and you're connecting with the Métis leaders. You're doing so much. You're putting up the teepee. You're inside the teepee at Stampede at Elbow River Camp, and you're there all for the whole 10 days, I'm sure. But what sort of made you want to get involved in the Indigenous side?
I think that's where all the wrinkles are coming from. But I've always been a firm believer in community policing. Before this, I worked as an addictions counselor at a homeless shelter for a while, and just found that community connection was key. And then from that, it was a probation officer, and then eventually into a peace officer, into a police officer. It's what I always tell when we do training here with recruits. We can't do this job without the community support. It's impossible. It's not going to happen. We need the community. And somebody just recently said, the police are community, the community are the police. And that's absolutely necessary. For years, I think the police took the lead on policies and procedures, and we know best where the police will do it this way. And I think there was a realization a while back of, we don't know what we're doing. We need the community. We need to talk to the community. We need the community to reach out to us and say, here's the direction we want you to go, because what better folks to steer us than the community we police? So it just made sense. And I love the community connections. I love meeting people. I love going to all the events, whether like it's a celebration or it's a protest. They're just being out there, and it's a little bit tougher right now with the COVID, the social distancing. I'm not used to it. I'm a hugger, so it's it's a challenge.
You bring a good point. And in our community, in the Métis community, there's definitely all that connection when it comes to we like our closeness, we like our events and things that happen, and the events that and really I think Lawrence and I try to tout is that it's sometimes easy to be angry, but the more important thing is to have a conversation. And the squeaky wheel was becoming one of these tools where we needed a new way to try and reach out to different groups. So, eventually you'll get a chance to watch the Muskrat Tales, which is our little minutes, sort of 3-minute vignettes of the Métis culture. But also here, we're respectful and we share the conversation with everybody. But I think you're doing a great job of ensuring that you're reaching the youth on all sorts of different levels through all the different types of media and social medias. But I wanted to use that to lead into the cadet youth program, because if we start to have those conversations with our youth early, I think that they may not understand it at the time, but they become more aware of it. So I guess my question too is, what's your familiarity with when it comes to the youth cadet program? Who are they looking to try and engage at all times? And when it comes to the conversation of what you're educating them on, does it start with policing, or does it start with leadership, connection, how to education. Where does that program run?
So basically, the youth education or the youth cadet program is all encompassing. So it does offer leadership, a policing model, what it's like to be in a police agency nowadays. Like we talked about with all the community policing, and just basically making those connections with the community. And it goes even further than that, because when we talk about our youth that we connect with, like Lauren said, at the Elbow River camp, we have the teepee there. That teepee was actually given to us for the youth. It was transferred to us in 1985. Back in 1985, some of the elders recognized that a lot of the youth were leaving the reserves and coming to Calgary and getting involved in some pretty bad things. So they wanted a safe spot for the youth. So the teepee was transferred to us in 1990. We started setting it up in Elbow River Camp, and basically a beacon to the youth, saying, you can come here, it's a safe spot. And it's, people say like, oh, that's the old story. That's the old story. 2 years ago, I was there, and we had exactly that scenario play out with a 15, at the time she was 15-year-old girl who was in trouble, who was lost, didn't know where to go. Where did she came to the teepee and said, here's my situation. We helped her out. It was amazing. The next year, that was 3 years ago, the year after, she actually volunteered throughout the whole stampede at the teepee, teaching people about it. With our youth program, we have that, and then we have different youth programs with our SROs, our MAS, which is our multi-agency services, their S4. One thing I'm really proud of too, we work really close with, is our yard team, which is youth at risk. So it's a social worker and a police officer who team up, and they go out and help the youth and the family. So it's a wraparound support. And within the yard program, we actually have an Indigenous specific social worker and police officer that help out Indigenous community, Indigenous youth, Indigenous families from all over. So just super proud about that. And, showing the youth there's a different side of policing. Like it's not like the old days with the billy club and walking down the street. It's engaging the community and finding out what's going on. And maybe one day, one of the youth will take over and be in my position and be able to continue the change that's been going on for 41 years. So that's my hope.
Well, and I think that when you engage the youth, and this is as I've slowly get seemingly older and older, I realize that if we don't have these conversations or things like the cadet programs, you become unaware of what questions they're asking, especially with all of the new technology that's out there. If you don't know that this is how they connect through the Instagrams and the Snapchats and the things like that, and if you don't then utilize that tool, how are you ever going to find out what their questions are? And in a way, you think back to 20 years ago, for me, or well, maybe it's a little longer than that now, but you didn't get the newspaper till 6 p.m. And then the news had kind of already happened. Whereas now, things are happening at the moment, and everybody seems to be aware of it. And if you can't share the conversation, how do you stay ahead of it? Lawrence, what do you figure when it comes to what's happening with the youth?
Well, I think youth are just so, ingrained on their mentors to tell them what's going on, and also what's on their phones, right? And what they see there. And you can have a very far right thinking, a far left thinking, and it just goes from there, right? But in terms of how they see the future, who knows? But we need to, as role models, just show them a little path here, maybe becoming a fireman or becoming a police member or getting into political science and or becoming a ballet dancer. Who knows, right? But they're going to pick their own path, but hopefully it's the right path, right?
I mean, there's so much out there with the social media. Like I'm blessed that sometimes I say I'm blessed, but I'm blessed I have 5 kids, and they're all, in that between 8 years old and 21. So, I get all that Snapchat and all the filters and the Instagrams and everything. So that's, it keeps me up to date. But we also have a couple of programs here at CPS. We have the Youth Link. I don't know if anybody's been there, but they do an amazing job. It's the police museum, and they actually have sections on internet safety and bullying and, just for parents and for youth to what to watch out for. So super proud about that. And we work closely with them all the time. And during the summer, they have summer camps. So amazing. I don't know if you guys have seen it too, but I watched a show just recently on Netflix called The Social Dilemma about exactly what Lawrence was saying about how the social media can actually swing you to either side, and you get fed the same information without any real conversation. So it's if you haven't seen it, I won't spoil it for you. Go watch it. It's pretty cool.
Well, and that, that is part of the problem I think we're going to see with COVID is that, we're not going to see that mentorship back and forth between an adult that your peer, your mentor, because your peer and your mentor is coming from your phone, right? It's not coming from an actual human being, and we got to be very diligent and very careful with that, because it could be a dangerous, slippery slope for our vulnerable youth, especially.
Yeah, it's amazing with what a handshake, a hug, or even just a personal smile can do versus on a Zoom call. It's just you don't have the energy of the person.
Well, and that's a very good point, because as we even sit in this conversation, the people are just seeing what they see, of viewing us right now. The point that I'm going to try and make, because there's always a healthy competition between firemen and the police service, is because we can't see how tall Alan Chamberlain is. And folks, he's a fair bit taller than me. I would like to challenge you to a limbo competition. It's pretty good likelihood. Because based on that, the limbo's probably the only thing I'm going to beat you at because of how tall you are. And it's not going to be a basketball competition because there's no chance of me winning that one. But yeah, I wanted to throw in the healthy competitiveness between us. But I cannot say enough to thank you for your service. And I wanted to, the other thing that I really wanted to ask you about and really wanted to hit on was, as I was doing a little bit of research into Alan Chamberlain as well as CPS, and just for conversation, I came across a really interesting roadmap, and it's the Indigenous Strategic Roadmap that was set forth and brings in conversation with elders, and it's a framework. Can you tell us about that? Because your name is strongly associated with that, in the relationship with the CPS. What's happening with that? And have you noticed that as a result of the reconciliation requirements, and this roadmap's been coming out for a while, where is that right now, and what's happening with it?
Well, right now with COVID, this came out about a year and a half ago now, but with COVID, it's kind of slowed down because we can't come together. But basically, what happened was we had some talking circles. I think we had 2 talking circles with probably about 90 to 100 people per, including elders, scribes, ceremonialists from all nations, all walks, all agencies. Basically to say, like, what do you want to see from your police service? Like I said in the beginning, you need the community. So, they came out and we extracted a whole bunch of amazing information and amazing suggestions from this. Within that too, we also have a working committee within the CPS, including officers, sworn and civilian, that are, that help out. And, it was tough because they were actually talking about, like, what do they want to call it? Because, in the police world, there's a lot of policy and procedures. I'm sure in the same way in the fire. Yeah. And it's very black and white. The problem with that, it's not flexible. It's either yes or no, black and white, done. But with the truth of reconciliation and the calls to action, it can't be black and white. It can't, things are evolving, things are changing, things are happening. So that's why we called it a roadmap instead of, a strategy or a policy, because the map will actually move with and evolve as time goes on for the needs of the community. So we're not, stuck, 50 years down the road of like, oh, well, we're still following something from 50 years ago. Things will change. So we need to change with it. So super excited about it. It's, when this COVID, hopefully, if it's over soon, we can come back together, or if I can muster up and figure out how to do a Zoom call like Ross can, we can get it rolling again. But there's a lot of excitement, a lot of, it's a big challenge, but, it's long overdue. It's very long overdue. And, you got to roll up the sleeves and put the work in.
But I think that's great, because if there was not a starting point, if you didn't take that one step forward, it just falls by the wayside and we ignore it, and it never gets brought into the conversation. So it's great that the city's developed something, as you said, a roadmap. And those terminologies sometimes can be such a challenge because everybody has a different perspective on it. But you're right. We're always learning. I mean, this is finally, we're having conversation. Lawrence has done a great job of engaging our communities, our business communities, through the mixers, through the elder, the senior events, that we're finally really coming to the forefront of saying, let's talk about the Métis people. Let's all learn about the Métis people. Even for myself, I am constantly learning and I'm always enjoying it. So now knowing and getting the opportunity to bring in people who are respected in our community, who I highly respect, and thank you, Alan, because this is a nice opportunity. Too often we get a chance to maybe see each other at an event, but now we're getting to share a bit of this conversation with the community and with the people and all of our listeners on the Squeaky Wheel. So Lawrence, help us close out our time here with Alan, because I've gushed enough, and the rest of the firemen are going to be making fun of me for being so collegial with such a wonderful guy.
No, I want to say
we have the limbo going, and I'm hoping that Lawrence is going to hold the pole. It's going to be a whole thing.
No,
okay,
no.
well,
fundraiser.
I'll make sure we film it, and it'll end up being on the Squeaky Wheel at some point.
No, I want to thank Alan. You know, you always show up for our things, coming for seniors lunch and bringing a bunch of members with you to serve coffee and dinner to our seniors, to coming to our dances, making sure we're okay, especially on our outdoor events. But no, I want to thank you very much for everything you do as a Indigenous community liaison member. And we'll hope for the good path forward when we get there. So.
And thank you to everyone, and thank you to the Métis community and all the elders. I was thinking, as I was reading the questions before, and I was kind of like, looking at them, I was like, and the one that really hit me was, all the support that I've had within the community with the elders. But one of my close to my heart, my biggest thanks, I'm going to say, is Marlene Lance, former president of the Métis Nation Region 3. Every day I miss going for tea with her, and just having that conversation. I remember meeting her for the first time, and she reminded me of my Aunt Marjorie. And I showed her a picture. I said, "Oh my God, you're a spitting image. You sound just like her." It felt like being home. So one of my biggest influences was Marlene, and I can't say enough, and miss her every day.
Yeah, we all do. Been tough, but we had to move forward. I know she's smiling down. She certainly didn't expect a lot, I think, from myself, but I think I've did what I can, best I can. And I have another few years left here, and maybe possibly another 4, so we'll see. But no, I definitely carry her legacy with me as best I can.
And you're making her proud, buddy.
Marlene made a very strong roadmap, and Lawrence, I think you're carrying that torch very well, and I look forward to it. So all the folks out there, if you get a chance, you want to get a hug from Constable Alan Chamberlain, because it is an absolute fantastic one. So Alan, we're going to let you go and say thank you again, and thank you for your service, and thank you for the 10 years you've spent on the CPS so far.
Awesome. Thank you, fellas. We'll chat soon.
Yeah.
Best wishes.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Yeah.
Boy, there is everything I like about Alan Chamberlain. He is such a wonderful man. Always engaged at our events, and always bringing that to the community.
But not only our events, as Métis, he's in all of Treaty 7 territories, in the Blackfoot communities. He's everywhere. So
you're right. Thank you you for actually pointing that out. And he made mention of that, right? That he's, I think the one thing I always try to express is that though this conversation might be coming from a Métis perspective, I like to think that our conversations are translatable across all cultures, across our city, our province, our nation, that if everybody is having these kind of conversations, and if we're taking the time also, that when it's an important conversation to listen to that other group, then we're doing our part. And Alan, you're right. Right guy.
And we hear so much about the negative just recently, of course, with policing, but there's some things that they need to celebrate too as police members. And, Alan is sort of and Cindy Provost are kind of in the middle of all that, right?
Yeah.
As a distinct model to support the community.
Yeah.
And we know there's issues that are happening in the States, and it's bleeding into Canada. We just want to make sure that the message is out there that there is a negative to what happens with the police, because it's usually a few members that do that, but then you have the 99% of all the rest of them that are fairly decent people, and there is a program that's within the policing at Calgary Police to support the Indigenous community. And I think that's important messaging to get out there.
Yeah, and I think that they're trying to create that awareness for all minority groups, as well as removing the idea of minority groups and saying citizens. We're all citizens. So here's where that conversation has to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it's and that's what I mean. We don't want to really portray that there is a huge systemic racism is in everywhere,
Yes.
not only policing, but government, industry. It's in our community even, so, how do we as a nation combat that? Sometimes we have to explore all the good things to combat the bad things,
And recognize it. Don't try to ignore it. Recognize and say, let's have a conversation. And you may not have people who come forward with what their issues or complaints are, but they may be willing to listen. And I think this is one of the tools. So folks, if you have any questions when it comes down to this, and or you want to send something positive, a positive message to Alan and the CPS, you're welcome to send it here to tsw@métis3.org. Go to our website. Make sure you subscribe, support us. And this is how we get chances to send messages back to the people who are doing such good work within our communities. Lawrence, I wanted to rant a little bit, and that's where we've come to in this part of the program. And the thing I wanted to talk about today was all of the masks that have become waste. And I get it. Here we've been using them for our protection. We've been using them to protect others. And we've told people, and the communities have said you have to wear them. And people, now you find them everywhere. Folks, that's like throwing your underwear out as far as I'm concerned. It's okay. I get it. The garbage may fall to the ground out of your pocket occasionally, but try to do your due diligence of keeping our city clean and keeping those things out of people's hands.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, it's just like litter, right? You don't throw your trash out your window. Why throw your mask?
Yeah. Why?
Because you don't want it in your vehicle, or, get a bag and put it in there.
Maybe that's it. Maybe that's our next business idea. Lawrence, we're always coming up with new business ideas here. A specific sized mask garbage bag. Essentially, it would be like the doggy bag.
Well, you can go to Canadian Tire and buy a vehicle trash bag, like
right. But I also,
pail.
those little blue bags that people carry for their dog waste.
Oh yeah.
Now we sell the Squeaky wheel mask waste glove, and it's got a little wheel on there, and it says the president on it. And that's
then people just be using it when COVID ends. They'll just be using it for poop bags, anyways, right?
Maybe we don't necessarily want the Squeaky wheel completely associated with that. So it was a business idea, it just may not necessarily have been a good one. But folks, yes, try to do what you can in order to take care of your own waste. So I want to say thank you to our roaster today, which I actually forgot to bring up the irony of our roaster being the Bullet with Constable Alan Chamberlain. And the Bullet Coffee Shop, we talked about a little earlier. Folks, highly recommend. They're wonderful people, and they're just Northland and 14th Street in the northwest. Yeah, up 14th Street, up northwest. Absolutely wonderful. The thank you to the allowance to use our traditional lands. Thank you to our treaty lands. Thank you to our Mother Earth. Thank you to the Métis and the Métis settlements, our seniors, our elders, our families. Always thank you to my co-host, the president, Lawrence Gervais. Thank you for your time that you always spend with me. Thanks for always having the conversation about our backgrounds, your background in the success that you've had through all of the agencies and the programs you've worked in, your tenure and experience, and your still involvement, as you point out, with the ballet community. And I'd like to thank everybody for the time that I get to spend with you. So,
well, my natural road was always, when I went into classical ballet and had a fairly decent go with that, then the Aboriginal community let me step a little bit further, you know, to get where I am today. So, you know, I like to thank both communities for getting me to where I am.
Yeah.
You know, and I still have a future. You never know. I might have a ballet in my mind one day and start producing stuff, and people go, I knew that guy. You know, I used to drink coffee with him at the Friendship Center, and now look at him.
I'm
He's
quite
on a big
confident
stage
that when
again.
you write that ballet, my character is going to be just a little taller, but just as
Well,
good looking.
We'll give you a staff holder position, so they just basically sit there, you know, like this. For the
I'm
whole
quite
time,
confident by the time that gets out, I'll have learned a few tondus in order to get through. So thank you, folks. Thank you for listening to Squeaky Wheel. Make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe to us. And we always appreciate it. And keep the fire burning.